What is up, traders? Today I have an interesting follow-up video in the saga. Many of you who follow along know that I am very critical of the funded trader model, right? The so-called proprietary trading firms that bastardize the term that I hold so dear to me in my own heart. So I've been vocally critical of them, and a week or two ago, I took a little shot on Twitter at the CEO of Topstep, Michael Patak. And to Michael's credit, he said, "Hey Lance, I hear you. Like, let's have an open discussion, especially if you're in Chicago. Let's talk." I took him up on that. And first of all, anyone that does that, especially Twitter is the arena of just incivility and taking shots and dunking on people. And I try to avoid that, but I fell into my base instincts and did not. And he handled it well and said, "Hey, let's chat." And so I took him up on that offer, and I spent some time trying to vocalize what my critique and criticism is of the model and prepped for this. And essentially, Michael wanted to have me on Topstep TV live to discuss these things. That is a ballsy move. And I said, okay, let's send it. Why not? Let's do this in the arena, little jab cross and see who gets the better of each other. And I did my homework. I released that one video over the weekend, which kind of summarized my thoughts. And ahead of the live TV appearance, I reached out to Michael and I said, "Hey," because I didn't want this to be any type of gotcha or anything like that, especially when he's kind enough to open the conversation. And so I said, "Hey, Michael, here's the angle I'm coming from. Like, any chance you have some of this data and stuff like that?" And so interestingly, he said, "Look, it's hard to be public about some of this data, but how about this? Rather than have the conversation live, like let's talk, head to head and hash some of these things out." And so for me, initially I was like, interesting, funny, you don't want to, talk about this stuff publicly. And so we ended up chatting one-on-one, and it was actually a great conversation. And spoiler alert, he actually really persuaded and changed my views on a lot of this topic. So props to him, and let's dive into that conversation then. So first of all, super nice guy. In all of our communications, he was civil, he was open, he was awesome. In fact, I was the kind of less civil one, which is rare on the internet because I think I hold myself pretty well. But this was a time where I'm like, "Hey man, like, look, I'm sorry. I took a shot at you and I want to talk about this stuff." And so even during my research and debating these points with some of my friends and that use Topstep or use these funded trader models, it was clear to me that there was a lot of nuance, right? There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but a lot is the devil in the detail. Are people being harmed? What's the ratio of people finding success to not? And so I started chatting with Michael, and we ended up talking for, I don't know, it was probably close to an hour. And he let me voice all of my criticisms, and the gist of it was he was like, "Lance, like, I hear you. I hear you on all of these." He shares a lot of the same criticisms I have, and he admits that there have been many bad actors in the space. So all of that was great. And I'm like, "Well, good, great. Hey, case closed." But he's like, "Look, Lance, like, I hear you on this, but hear our side and hear what we do at Topstep, and let me see if I can convince you differently." And he did actually, like, especially once I took the time to reflect. And this is why. So I made the argument that, like, yes, I'm sure these funded trader programs are awesome for a small subset of traders, but my issue was like, okay, what's the number? How many people are actually being harmed otherwise? How many people are losing tons of money on these just evals and combines and everything? And how many people are just falling for the trap of being sold a dream and gamified? And he made the case that all of those issues concern him. And at Topstep, they do the best they can to avoid a lot of the gamification. They try to be transparent. They have their big board leaderboard of how many people are making money. You can know how many people are on the Discord, how many people are participating in this type of stuff. And I told him some horror stories I've heard, and he told me about the safeguards they have in place. For example, there is a limit on the number of combines and evals you can do each month. So for people that are burning through a lot of money or might have more of the gambler tendencies and they're not doing it properly, they actually put safeguards in place And they actively try to remove those people from their platform. So kudos to them, because I think those nuances and those gray areas are super important. The other case he made, which I think does have validity and also changed my mind a lot, is he made the argument like, Lance, like you're comparing everything in a vacuum, like the losing traders. You're saying, oh, they're losing money rather than being in demo and stuff. But he's like, Lance, you're not thinking that a lot of these traders, they otherwise would just be opening up a brokerage account and burning through a lot of money otherwise. They could be losing their college fund. They could be losing their savings. At least with the funded trader program eval model, it's capped. Generally, I think some of their evals are $50. So he's like, Lance, like some people, even if they do this for entertainment, even if they do this as a hobby, they're only burning through $50, $100. They're learning their skills and everything. And he also highlighted that at Topstep, they're really trying to do a lot of trader education and stuff, and a lot of good stuff regarding risk management. And even Tanner and some of my other friends confirm this, that Topstep is pretty much the least constrictive regarding some of the crazy constraints and rules. So I think like a lot of that stuff is important. And just from speaking with Michael, I got the feeling that he does genuinely care about the industry. He does genuinely care about the user, and that he doesn't want that garbage where people are, gambling, people are trying to be sold a dream and all that stuff. And they have had, of course, many traders that find success, like many of whom I know. And so I think like the devil with some of these funded trader programs is in the details, where it's, are they gamifying? Are they trying to sell a dream? Are they not being transparent? Are there not safeguards for people that really shouldn't be on these to begin with? Are they adding layers and layers of constraints? So I think that stuff matters. And look, I don't want to mention firms, but like we discussed a lot of other firms that were doing things not great, and many of the firms that have since gone out of business. And we also discussed all sorts of things that it's not public, that he's allowed to talk about yet, or things that I'm not able to, legally talk about, that I've been exposed to. And overall, like I said, it did shift my view. Because I think a lot of the time, if people are just doing this responsibly, and if you have those safeguards in place, then like, okay, I get it. Because a lot of the criticisms of my views were like, Lance, like, otherwise, trading and becoming funded is not accessible to people. So like, okay, I hear you on that. And I think accessibility and education is good. I even know Dr. Steenbarger does psychology education on the platform and stuff. So it's like they are getting some real deal education and everything else. So like, I guess in all, like, thank you, Michael, for the open dialogue. Thank you for being so civil. Thank you for the courtesy. No, I don't want to turn this into a Topstep ad, and no, you're not going to hear, oh, hey, I've partnered with Topstep or anything sneaky like that. Really, I had this conversation just with an open mind. And I think as traders, like, not just traders, but as human beings, I think it's so important. Like, it's okay to have a view, but it's also okay to just, like, when you differ in view, to just communicate and respectfully, which I, to be fair, I kind of took a cheap shot. But otherwise, it was a really, really nice dialogue. There was a lot of mutual respect. And truth be told, like, what Michael is doing, and they're fairly sophisticated. Like, they're working on a lot of projects, and they're doing a lot of stuff on the back end. There's a lot of intelligence and insight that they're doing right. So overall, yeah, that's my updated view. Did I expect that I would have my mind changed by this conversation? No. And that's why it's so important to leave the Twitter sphere where you're just punching at each other and it's everyone dunking, and having kind of just a civil discourse anytime there's a disagreement. So yeah, you know what? Hey, look, Topstep, I think you're doing things right. I think you're trying to avoid a lot of the issues that plague the industry. I think you're adding accessibility and education. So yeah, guess what? I don't think I'm going to be taking more pot shots at Michael or Topstep anytime soon, because I do think there was a lot of validity to their arguments. And so thank you, Michael. And yeah, shocker, my opinion was changed. I'm happy to be on the record and do this follow up and be transparent. So thank you all for following the saga. And look, if there's bad players, don't worry, I'll still call them out. And yeah, that's it here.